All right, welcome back to our channel. So we had a bit of a hiccup for personal reasons. Hasan Abdullah was not able to attend our sessions. And as such, we are on a bit of a time crunch. Now we have a lot less time than we initially planned. And respectively, we are going to tailor our lessons to meet the needs of our students. So to get started, like I said, we're very short on time, so we're going to get right into it. Today, we are going to cover pronouns and suffixes as they are building they are essential in building words, sentences, and overall structures. So just give me a moment while I share my screen over here. All right. So before I do get started, Hasan abi, um, you are somewhat familiar with the Turkish language as you've been here for a few years now. You might already know that the language itself is highly sorry, I couldn't pronounce the word, agglutinative, which is basically a language that uses morphology a lot, which means that complex words are formed by stringing together morphemes without changing the word or its phonetics. An example of that could be such as, I'm going to start very simple text. O. As we all know, o in the Turkish language is he, she, or it. It refers to something. And basically, if we're going to start with just suffixes for a moment here, there are different forms. So the word o can be referred to as onlar, onlardan.
Close the door.
This is very essential when we're starting off. O means he, she, or it. Onlar refers to a plural suffix, which is them, they, and onlardan can basically mean, hold up, he, she, it, right? Onlar, they, or them. Onlardan basically forms a sentence for starters. Onlardan, from them. Another example would be, for example, you do have to deal with banks a lot, I'm guessing, over the phone. So banka, right? Bankalar, or even just bankadan, bankalardan. And these are both singular and plural. Um, but to go over that, we need to just address some of the pronouns that we have. And let me just open another text bracket over here. Ben, sen, o. And when we get into the suffixes of all these, there's more that we're going to get into, but just for a very brief example, let's start with yapmak. Yapmak, to do, right? So um, ben, me, you, he, she, or it's. So when you take the verb yapmak and you add suffixes to it, you give direction. An example would be the yaptı, yapıyor, yapacak. And now these are essential because this is very, very basic grammar. Yapmak is to do. Yaptı, when you add that little suffix in the end, it refers to something that had happened. Yapıyor, again, similarly, you drop the mak in the actual verb, similarly in etmek, çizmek, right? So you'll get etti, ediyor, edecek, çizmek, çizdi, and we're going to get to how these form differently as well. Çiziyor, çizecek. And mostly, before we do continue, it's essential that we get into this as well. Let me just go over my notes for a second. Yapmak, yaptı, yapıyor, yapacak. Similarly, so these are some of the very, very basic suffixes that we use in the Turkish language. To give you a better understanding of how they're used, I'm going to use it in simple sentences. Gitmek, right? And
By the
the
way, Hasan,
past,
do you know the meanings of these verbs? Yapmak, etmek, çizmek, gitmek.
Yes.
that's
What are
good,
they?
man. Gitmek, to go. So I'm going to use an example from one of our previous examples, banka, right? So if you were to
Gonna
say
get cold.
bank, like I have to go to the bank, right?
Oh, you're gonna get cold out here.
Uh,
I know.
or let's go with you have to go to the bank. There are a number of suffixes that you need to look into. So banka is bank. So when you say I need to go to the bank, bankaya gitmen lazım. So the suffix here, let me see if I can change the color of this.
What is this? I need to go to the bank, or you need to go to the bank?
You need to go to the bank. Hold up.
You should write that, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to, but let me see if I can just change the color of some of this text.
Or maybe you can just make it bold.
Yeah.
Control B.
Yeah, it's just it's not letting me. Interesting. Okay, that's odd.
Come on, B, if you're using Apple, Mac.
I'm just gonna gitmen lazım. I'm just gonna draw. I like drawing. Okay, so the suffixes here basically are the Y and the A in bankaya. So this is an example of pointing out to something. Like, I'm going to give you some basic, simpler examples so we can better understand. There we go. Text. Right below. Bankaya gitmen lazım. Select. Okay. You have to go to the bank. Let's see if I have some examples of some of these suffixes here. Now the thing is with suffixes, these are some of the suffixes that come at the end of a word or a verb or a pronoun, and there are a lot more complicated ones that come in the middle of the middle of the words. But some very simple examples of that would be, for example, some suffixes that you might have already come across: da, de. Oh man, this Turkish keyboard is so annoying sometimes. There we go. And then te. Dan, dan, tan. For example, these are one of the most common suffixes that you'll find in the Turkish language. If you take the word ev, which means home, right? And you were to add a suffix to this, if you were to say, you know, he's at home, or she's at home, or it's at home, how would you approach this? What suffix do you think at this stage you would add, Hasan?
Depends. I mean, if I'm saying, for example, let's say I'm at home, then I think it would probably be ben ev dayım.
Yeah, that's actually it. Evdeyim, however. Ben evdeyim. The thing is, this is actually a good example. Let me just draw under here. Evdeyim, right? The thing is, it's at home. Evde would be evde, right? But when you say ben evdeyim, right? Evde. Let me just draw this line over here as well. Evde, at home, right? At home. But when you say ben evdeyim, you're saying I am at home. So the suffix here would be de. The ones that you would use, for example, da, de, or ta, or te, would essentially be used depending on the vowels that come before the suffix. So if I'm going to give an example, ev, right? Evde. Evde. Oda, which means room. Odada, right? These are two different
Mhm.
examples of how they're used. Um, geçiş, which means passage. Geçişte. Or yatak, which means bed. Yatakta. So these are all different examples of them.
So basically, the reason we're saying evde instead of, let's say, evda is because the last vowel in ev is e, and e rhymes with, of course, de.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. The thing is, with the Turkish language, it has a lot of phonetic rhythm to it. And so if it sounds off, if it sounds weird, then typically the answer to that is probably is. So if the vowels or the letters that come before them, that precede them, if they're soft, then the suffix is going to be soft as well. Evde. You wouldn't come out and say evda because it just sounds really weird. Evda, evdayım, right? Oda. You wouldn't say oda de. You know, there's a rhythm to it that you need to follow. And essentially that just through that, you can very easily figure out which suffix comes or how it comes, you know, whether you're going to use da, de, or ta, or te. For example, geçiş. I think maybe Onur or Obeda might be able to just assist us a little bit here. There are certain vowels, particularly like geçişte, because in fact, let me just give you a few examples and then we can just elaborate on them. The letters or vowels E, which was E, U, U, and A, U, O, U. So the ones on the bottom are considered to be sart. Would that be correct? Sart. They're stronger vowels compared to the other ones, which are softer. A, E, I. So depending on those vowels, for example, E, I, O, U, there's a typical rule to this. Evde. So you'll get de, right? And then we have
In the first line after e, is it supposed to be a or e? Top line.
Yeah, it is. Good catch. You're learning. Yeah. And
He
then,
just measured your attention.
which is very good. I'm very happy.
I mean, the thing is, Turkish is a very logical and consistent language. So, you know, good news for people whose first language is not Turkish. It's quite easy to understand once you can understand the logic.
Mhm. Let's see what we can do with this. Maybe we can have a little fun, right? And let's give me an example of something you would typically need to say in your day-to-day in Turkey, whether it's dealing with a bank, a food, or even at work. Like, you know, I'm going to go on a shoot, right? Çekime gideceğim ya da çekime gitmem lazım, right? Or maybe something simpler. Do you guys have any ideas?
Yeah, I have an idea. When we go to his apartment to pick him up, he is always saying, "I'm at the toilet." So we can start with.
There's a few rules that there. Toilets, right? Which means toilet. Just based on the previous examples, how would you say at the toilet? Toilet. What suffix would come here?
Tuvalet, tuvalete.
Toilette. Exactly.
Tuvalete.
Exactly at the toilet. Tuvaletteyim, you gave an example earlier with evdeyim, so you know how to say ben tuvaletteyim, right? At the toilet.
Should we go further? What are you doing there?
You want to go into more detail, bro? That's up to you. Give me a moment here when I go. I have so many notes, it's difficult to organize them, you know. Okay, let's continue a little bit. let's continue with text. Okay. So let's go with some pronouns and we can play around with them, right? So the suffixes, they're very simple. And I guess we can play around with how these suffixes come or, mingle around with these pronouns. I gave some earlier, they were singular. Let's go with some plural pronouns, such as biz, siz, onlar, right? Us, siz,
You, plural.
you plural, exactly. Plural. Onlar, them, right? Whoops. I got so many tabs open here, Let's go with some dative pronouns as well, and then we can continue from there. Dative, singular. Bana, sana, ona. All right.
Ubayd abi, are you there?
To you.
I thought that's a picture of you. You already left.
Okay. So let's take a look at what we have now. Biz, siz, onlar, bana, sana, ona. And if we take into consideration an example that we had earlier, if we were to make these dative singulars plural, how would you approach that, right? I'm just going to open this up here. Bize, size, onlara, right? Just move this down. There we go. All right, so let's just take a good look at this for a moment, and then we can go into constructing some sentences that we can use.
Instead of focusing on this kind of thing, we should make it more practice. We should.
That's exactly where we're going now. Yeah.
Yeah, we should work on the sentences.
Exactly. Like up until now, the sentences that we formed were of, I am going, I am doing, I am at. So we're going to mix this around a little bit and focus on like, sana, ona, biz, siz, onlara, when referring to things outside. Oops, there we go. I can just come and go like this. So let's start with some of the plural pronouns, right? Biz, siz, was it o?
Onlar.
Onlar. Yeah. Whoops. And then also bize.
I figured out that when it comes to grammar, I feel sleepy.
That's the case. This is the really boring bit. That's why we're going into the really more constructive, fun, engaging bit. So let's start forming some sentences using these pronouns, right? Let's get away from ben yapıyorum, ben edeceğim, stuff like that. Let's start with biz, like biz. What are we doing? Biz ne yapıyoruz, right? Like, what are we doing right now? Let me just form a sentence. Biz Hasan'a Türkçe öğretiyor. Okay. So let's break this down. Biz Hasan'a Türkçe öğretiyoruz, right? This translates to we are teaching Hasan Turkish. So the question at hand is, there's a few things that are new. We know what biz means. We've already discussed this. Hasana, right? What does this means, right? In the Turkish language, this very roughly translates to, to Hasan, So we are doing something to Hasan. What are we doing? We're teaching him. What are we teaching him? Turkish. So when you take this into account as well, this is another suffix that's highly important. The A in this comes from ona, Hasana, right?
For example, did you tell this to Hasan?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Hasana.
Söyledin mi?
is it that we have A at the end of Hasan because the last vowel in Hasan is A? So, for example, what if
Yes, yes.
let me
Look.
let me see if I've got the logic correct. Let's say instead of Hasan, if you were saying that we're teaching owner Turkish, let's say, the last vowel in owner is U. So would it be? Let me get this straight. So would it be biz onaru Türkçe öğretiyoruz, or what
Onura.
would be the
Onura. Onura.
In this example that Yasin has given, it's always مثلا Onura, Hasana, Yasina, Ubayda.
The thing
So-
is here, if it was Yasin instead of Hassan, take a look at this. It wouldn't be an A, it would be an E. Yasine. And again, the same thing applies, which we discussed earlier, is where was it here? These vowels over here. This is the thing that you need to take into account. It doesn't matter what the suffix is, whether it's da, de, ta, te, or onura, yasine. The general rule is if the vowels are soft, by soft, I don't think I'm saying this right, but in Turkish, the way that we refer to these vowels are ince, which means thin vowels, as opposed to kalın, which are thick. The ince ones are e, i, ü, because of the way that they're phonetically pronounced, as opposed to the other vowels, which are a, o, u. And the way that is because if the vowel is, let's say an o, right? Like o, onur, u. Phonetically, it needs to be on a similar wavelength. And if you take a look at it, the da, the ta, or the de, or the te, they have the same vowel in the same group. So e, I, o, u, you get de, te, ten, den, right? And if whether it's onur and the vowel or the last vowel in the word is a u or an a, then you get the same thing in the thing that follows. So yasine, you wouldn't get yasina because that again, exactly, it sounds weird, right? So to yasin. So biz Hasan'a Türkçe öğretiyoruz. Let's take the word öğretmek as an example. Öğretmek. So what did we do to the word here? There's a number of things, right? We're in the process of doing something. So in the process of doing something, you would get the word öğretiyor. So what you do is you drop this, right? You drop the bit in the end.
what's the verb? What's the verb? Öğret.
Öğretmek, to teach. I'm gonna, to teach. Right? You drop the mek, or you drop the little bit in the end, because the general, what was it? The fundamental word in this verb is öğret, which means teach, right? I should have done that earlier, actually. Öğret. Just give me a moment. Oops. Öğret. Öğretmek, right? So what we do is we drop that. We take the base word öğret, and then we add the suffixes. That's basically what it is. Öğret. Öğretmek is the general, verb, but öğretiyor. So on its own, it means, he, she, or it is teaching. But what we did is we have something that gives some form of possession to this, biz, right? And what happens when you take a word or a verb like this, öğretiyor, like, you know how you say ben evdeyim? Essentially what you would do is you would add the suffix that belongs to that. So biz öğretiyoruz, right? So you would get öğretiyoruz. We are teaching. And essentially, that's just the breakdown of this sentence. Just to get a good, better understanding of whether or not you've understood this, I'm going to form a similar sentence, and then we can break it down together. Biz göreve gidiyoruz. Now, there's one essential rule. When we said biz Hasan'a to Hasan, there's an apostrophe there for one very good reason, because it's a special name. It's not a verb, it's not an
Proper noun.
exactly. But görev, we use this a lot in our line of work, you know. We essentially, you can translate to we are going to work, right? Or that would be işe. Let me just do işe. Biz işe gidiyoruz. Görev is deployment. Biz işe gidiyoruz. We are going to work, right? Let's break this down. Why is this sentence the way it is? Or what is what? Because essentially,
Ish is the adverb, is work. Biz is we are. Gidiyoruz, going. Yani we are all going.
exactly. Gitmek. Git, right? So gidiyor, and then you get gidiyoruz. I'd like Hasan Abdullah to. I'll give you a sentence in English, and I'd like you to give us the Turkish of it to the best of your ability. Essentially, just to understand the sentence structure. If you don't know the word in Turkish, we can provide it to you, and then you can use that to form it. So, let's make this a little bit more interesting. Sorry. Or not, let's not make it interesting yet.
Order food.
Yeah. We are ordering food.
Food, okay.
How would you approach this, Hasan abi?
What's the verb for order?
Sipariş.
Sipariş. Okay, sipariş to order. Food is yemek.
Correct.
V is biz. So I'm just constructing it. So food is yemek. V is biz. Biz yemeke. No. Sipariş is.
The thing is, with this sentence, let me do this and then maybe you can have a better understanding. So sipariş. The other verbs that we had were öğretmek. So why is this verb not siparişmek, right? The thing is, there are certain words, and I don't necessarily know. Hold up. Sipariş etmek, or sipariş vermek. There are some verbs in the Turkish language that don't necessarily have a root thing of its own, and etmek or vermek, yapmak might come at the end of it. So if you were to work around this, you need to keep this into consideration. Sipariş etmek, sipariş vermek. So the suffix would essentially come at the end of those. How would you form this sentence?
So biz sipariş etmek. Sipariş.
Essentially, the verb would come at the end, by the way, in Turkish. Ali topu attı. Ali threw the ball. Ali topu attı is throw, which comes at the end. So if you were to form the structure, remember that generally the verb comes at the end of a sentence in Turkish. So that's how you would be forming this.
Right, so sipariş is going to come at the end, you're saying. When we're saying etmek, is that in any way related to yemek, or do we still need to use yemek?
You do need to use yemek. Or order, sipariş etmek in itself is order. Yemek is food in itself. Because what are you ordering? You could be ordering clothing online. You could be ordering a truck.
So would it be something like biz yemeke sipariş etmek?
Don't forget
Is-
the suffix at the end of that one.
At the end of yemek.
At the end of sipariş etmek.
So biz yemek sipariş etmek yiyoruz. Sipariş
Does that
etmek.
sound correct to you? I'm not to patronize you, don't get me wrong.
No,
Just
of course.
because of the
I mean,
phonetic-
obviously with in terms of with biz yiyoruz or something is rhyming, but I'm not sure if it's the correct word to be used here.
remember, let's take the base verb of etmek for a moment. This is essential as well, etmek, right? So essentially, etmek is to do, right?
Yeah, there is
So-
something specific on this verb etmek. We should go with vermek. For example, that says öğretmek. Öğretiyoruz. So we will go with biz yemek sipariş veriyoruz. Biz yemek siparişi veriyoruz.
Biz yemek siparişi. So
Yeah, just
Eh.
try to understand the logic. Hani, at the beginning, we'll make some mistakes. At the next session, we'll more focus on the sentences. We'll give more examples, and it will be clear in your mind. Biz yemek siparişi veriyoruz, or biz yemek sipariş ettik. Aynen, biz yemek sipariş ettik.
yemek sipariş.
Veya biz yemek sipariş ediyoruz. And just try to understand the logic on this. At the next session, this will be clear in your minds. We'll focus on the sentences, what you use generally in the daily life. Just rewatch watch this session again and make it clear in your mind. Just try to prepare some question for the next session. Okay, I know this is really hard for you to understand, and it's really boring. I know it, but just to give a structure on this short grammar, this session will be good to get the logic behind the sentences. But next session will be more enjoyable. Okay.
Also, just finally, these last two verbs that I added are frequently used in the Turkish language. So if you know etmek, yapmak, and the different forms of them as etti, ediyor, edecek, yaptı, yapıyor, yapacak, this will be highly beneficial in understanding the Turkish language as we move forward.
So thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget to like and share this session. See you next week.
Peace.